Hello everyone! Today we are going to talk about some cool stuff, marijuana. In this video, we'll give you a brief introduction of the marijuana and talk about the chemistry behind it. I'll first introduce the origin of the marijuana. The earliest archaeological evidence for the human use of the cannabis was found in Romanian cairns dated 3500 BC. It was first used in ritual ceremonies by Proto-Indo-European tribes during the Chalcolithic period. The cannabis was used for various purposes for thousands of years. However, in the beginning of the 19th century, it was criminalized for its negative mental effects and banned in most countries. I'll now introduce the modern uses of the marijuana. The medical use of the marijuana is kind of interesting because there are limited evidences suggesting that the cannabis could be used to treat diseases effectively. However, given its outstanding physiological effects and relatively low long-term hazards and low rate of addiction, the marijuana is becoming more and more popular in medical uses. The second major use of marijuana is for recreational. The recreational uses of the weeds is mainly for its psychoactive and physiological effects. People love it and it's legal in many states. The third major uses of the marijuana is for spiritual uses. The cannabis has held a sacred status and has served as an entheogen in many regions. It is still used in modern culture as part of the religious routine in some religions all over the world.
Substances that cause the typical effects of cannabis, such as psychoactive high and therapeutic pain relief, is called cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are the active compounds found in cannabis, and there are more than 100 different kinds of cannabinoids that can be isolated from the cannabis, each with different effects. There are endocannabinoids and phytocannabinoids, and they are both naturally produced. Endocannabinoids are found in the body, and they stimulate cannabinoid receptors. Phytocannabinoids are found in plants. The most notable phytocannabinoids are delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol and cannabidiol, or THC, and CBD. The two most well-known cannabinoids, THC and CBD, share the same molecular formula, which is C21H30O2. They also have almost identical chemical structure. The only difference is that THC contains a cyclic ring, while CBD contains a hydroxyl group. This structural difference leads to the different mechanism of actions and different effects on the body. It is known that THC is the component that gets you high, while CBD is the non-psychoactive component that affects the body in less obvious ways. THC and CBD exert their effects by interacting with the body's endocannabinoid system, which helps you regulate mood, appetite, pain sensation, memory, stress response, immune function, motility in the gut, and more. When a person consumes THC or CBD, they bind to the cannabinoid receptors in the body, which are normally stimulated by endocannabinoids, as they share similar molecular shapes. Their bindings lead to the changes in the levels of specific neurotransmitters, causing the typical effects of cannabis, such as euphoria, sedation, appetite stimulation, impaired cognitive function, analgesia, and anxiety. While THC has many targets in our body, its psychoactive effects are thought to be mediated through CB1 receptors, which is one of the two cannabinoid receptors in our body that's located in the nervous system, including the brain. In a sober body, CB1 receptors are affected by neurotransmitters like anandamide, which is known to cause the runner's high. It's suggested that THC activates CB1 receptors as endocannabinoids would and gets you high by affecting memory, coordination, concentration, and more. It's also suggested that the locations of the activated CB1 receptors account for the different effects on the body. The functions of the areas of the nervous system where CB1 receptors are present are associated with the common effects of THC. For instance, CB1 receptors that are affected by THC and found in the cortex and hippocampus may be involved in the perceptual and cognitive effects. If CB1 receptors in basal ganglia and cerebellum are affected, it may be involved in sedation and effects on movement. If CB1 receptors in the brainstem and the spinal cord are affected, it may be involved in analgesic effects. On the other hand, the mechanism of actions of CBD is still poorly understood. Researchers suggest that CBD may improve the function of the endocannabinoid system somehow and help body regulate the central nervous system. One theory is that CBD indirectly optimizes the performance of the endocannabinoid system by inhibiting enzymes and encouraging the production of the body's own endocannabinoids. Likewise, when a person consumes THC and CBD at the same time, CBD may mitigate some of the adverse effects of THC, like anxiety, by allosterically binding to CB1 receptors, meaning that it binds to CB1 receptors but not at the active site, and causing the changes in the receptor that reduces its interactions with THC. It's also suggested that CBD acts on receptors other than CB receptors and affect anxiety, pain perception, inflammation, and so on, and thus produces some medicinal benefits. Although the details on how it produces such effects is unclear, many studies report its beneficial effects. CBD is known to help with psychosis, while THC may aggravate the symptoms, and it's found to be a viable treatment for at least some types of epilepsy. More and more studies are reporting its beneficial effects on patients with anxiety-related disorders, chronic pain, opioid addiction, and many other neurological and psychiatric disorders. Hence, CBD has therapeutic potentials for treating a number of medical conditions. CBD is known to be well tolerated in general, but further research is necessary and is ongoing to prove its safety in all populations.
Now, I'll briefly introduce the extraction of the cannabinoids from the natural products. This is a very straightforward four-step extraction. We first perform solid liquid extraction to extract the THC from the cannabis to ethanol, and then we will perform a liquid extraction to separate the organic layer and the water. Then we will perform a filtration to remove the pigments in the liquid solution. The last step, the sublimation, is a purification technique that will purify our final product. The drawback of this simple extraction method is that we cannot discriminate the THC and CBD given their similar molecular structure. Now, I'll give a little bit more information about the legalization of the marijuana in the United States. So, there are some states that fully allow the consumption of the marijuana, including California, Oregon, Washington, Arizona, and etc. There are also some states that only allow the medical consumption of the marijuana, including New Mexico, New York, Virginia, and etc. In Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and several other states, the marijuana is fully illegal. It is interesting that in most Eastern countries, the marijuana is illegal, and in most Western countries, the marijuana is legal or becoming legal. There are some pros and cons of the legalization of the marijuana. The pros of the legalization of the marijuana, they announced that the legalization will help the stabilization of the society. The drug tax will be part of the national income. The legalization of the marijuana will minimize the potential risk of the black market trade. However, the cons of the legalization of the marijuana says that the drug abuse is the first concern. Also, there are some unknown long-term health effects of the marijuana. So, what do you think about the legalization of the marijuana? Thank you for watching our video.